Well, I'm interested in science. I'm interested in other art. I mean, I'm a visual artist, so I'm interested in things that are interesting to look at. And I'm interested a lot in poetry. And I think that the sort of visual art that interests me most is that which approaches the sort of I guess the sort of idea of poetry in a way, and to be able to, that has a sort of tight relationship and a sort of necessary relationship between what it says and what it means. And for me, that relationship is sort of crucial. And when that's successful in my work, I feel the work works. And when that is unsuccessful, when it doesn't feel like there's a necessity between what the work is and what the work says, then I feel the work fails. So I think in some ways poetry is my model for that, although it's not, I mean, it's the way I approach it, of course, is very different from how a poet would approach his or her work. So this work is it's an optical cloud, and it creates a shadow that is the precise shadow of a cloud cast in the garden of Emily Dickinson. And so the lights are a mixture of 3 different colors of fluorescence that recreate the spectral quality and the intensity of the daylight in her garden. And the cloud, the filters in the cloud create the shadow that is cast when a cloud passed over her garden. So as you walk around the cloud, you see you experience the experience of a cloud passing overhead. So although the cloud doesn't move, as a person moves around the cloud, it has the effect of a passing cloud. I guess I always wanted to make a work about this sort of subtle light shift, or not so subtle light shift that happens when a cloud passes overhead. It's something I've loved since I was a kid. I don't know why. I think some people don't even notice it, and some people become really moved by it. And it's something that's almost nothing, and I'm interested in work that sort of approaches that sort of 0 degree of almost nothing. And at that point of being nothing, it can also, I mean, for me at least, be almost everything. And so I had been bouncing around the idea of doing this passing cloud for a number of years and couldn't figure out what the actual subject matter would be. And then I was reading a lot of Emily Dickinson a few years ago, and it seemed that her kind of sensitivity and her sort of awareness to the world and her sort of connection to nature was sort of appropriate for this idea. And so that's how the sort of content and form came together. And then I just went to her house and spent 2 days there recording the changing light and just sort of walking around and looking at things. So it's sort of, in some ways, it's sort of an homage to her, because it's she expresses this sort of sensitivity and sensibility, which is something that I would like to approach. It's actually a picture of the night sky over the Painted Desert in Arizona, which is about the place. It's a place in the lower 48 states that has the least light pollution, so you get the best view of the night sky there. And what I did is I went out and I mixed pigment, 4 different pigments, to match the color of the sky, the black of the sky, which of course is not pure black. And I then, when I got back to my studio in New York, I measured the proportion of those pigments. So it's Mars black and cobalt blue and manganese violet and titanium white. And then I worked backwards and figured out the atomic weight of each of those molecules, and then created this sculpture that is a sort of model of those molecules. It's like a sort of high school chemistry model, but it's illuminated because, of course, you know, atoms have slight charges, and so the whole thing is sort of electrified. And so it is an exact model of this particular shade of black based on those colors. So, for example, titanium dioxide, which is TiO2, has a 1 titanium atom and 2 oxygen atoms, and the larger bulb, which is the titanium atom, has a larger atomic weight, so it's a bigger bulb. So everything's proportional that way. And then that mix of those particular molecules in that sculpture is the same as the mix of paint of the sky. The ice machine takes, well, there's water, it's a closed system, and in some ways sort of recreates the process of a melting glacier. So it takes water from the pool, it goes into a reservoir, is pumped up to the top of the tower, and from the tower it flows into the ice machine and creates ice. The ice then is spit out onto the slide and builds up into a big glacier-like pile, and then that melts and goes into the pool. The ice is dyed with ink. The water actually is dyed with ink, and that matches the color of the sky over a glacier in New Zealand that I visited in April. So when I went there, I just had a bucket of water and I mixed ink to match the color of the sky. And that water, the depth was 9 centimeters, and the water in this pool, the depth is 9 centimeters. And so the color of that pool is the precise color of the sky of the glacier over New Zealand. But it's constantly changing, although the level stays at 9 centimeters, so the density of the color is the same at all times. So it's basically just a very complicated monochrome painting, or it's a landscape painting, I guess, also. That is somewhere over 8,000 different shades of blue, and that comes from there's a text by David Hume that I came across years ago, where he talks about a missing shade of blue and what it would mean to be able to perceive a missing shade of blue. And so I wanted to do something that was somewhat connected to this location and specifically to the Scottish Enlightenment. And I think a lot of the work sort of references that movement and that sort of inquiry. So what that work is along the top row are 7 different shades of blue, 7 different, right out of the tube. And then below those are 21 different mixes of all of those. So there are 7 different, so let's say A through G, and then below them there's a mixture of each of those 2. So altogether there are 28 different shades of blue, different hues, and then on each of those panels is approximately 300 different tones getting gradually lighter. So I started dropping, I mixed the paint, dropped 1 drop, added a drop of water to the mixture, mixed it, dropped another drop. So gradually it becomes lighter and lighter with each drop. So it goes through about 300 different tones in each panel. So there's altogether about 8,000 different shades of blue. Yeah, that is a piece that deals with perception of color, and it recreates the color Prussian blue in 2 different ways. There are about 11 different physical ways color is sort of generated in the world, and Prussian blue is generated by this process called molecular orbital theory, which I don't understand, but I'm intrigued by it, and it's one of the few colors that actually is generated by this particular method. The room on the left is Prussian blue, and it's a very sort of subtle shade of Prussian blue, and that is created by paint that is, it's white paint that's colored with Prussian blue pigment and painted onto the wall, and it's illuminated with white light. The left room has white paint on the wall, and there are colored filters over the light, so it shifts the actual color of the light. So there's this sort of 2 additive and subtractive forms of creating color, and from a distance they look the same, and when you walk in, the experience is in some ways similar, in some ways different. So it's a little bit of a perceptual game, and at the same time just this diptych. Sometimes 2 things look the same, but they're really fundamentally physically different. It really wasn't intentional. It just sort of, a lot of my work deals with blue because I do a lot of work with the sky. I do a lot of work with the sea, so it's a color that appears in nature a lot. I like blue, but I like other colors too. It just happened. It just sort of happened that way. The Prussian blue piece was done, for example, the first time, like two or 3 years ago, for the 200th anniversary of the discovery of Prussian blue. So some things are are just sort of accidental, and but it all sort of came together. So there is a sort of consistent cast of color. I don't think, in fact, there's really no, I mean, unless you count the night sky being black, even though it looks like it's light, I guess everything's pretty much blue. So it's, it really wasn't too intentional, it just sort of happened.